Good morning, everyone. Paul Yunker, assisting the city of Rio Vista with the general plan update. It is 10 o'clock, but we do have people popping in still. So we're going to give it a couple of minutes before we get started. So if you could just hold tight and then we'll get going in just a few minutes. Thanks a lot. Christine, it does look like we'll be having at least 3 breakout rooms. So just for your purposes. If you just jumped on, we're giving folks another minute or two to join us before we get started, since we're still seeing a face or two coming on. I haven't seen another face pop up for a minute or two, so let's go ahead and get started, respecting everybody's time and willingness to give us your Saturday morning. Thank you very much. My name is Paul Yunker. I assist the city of Rio Vista with planning matters and am guiding the city through the general plan process. So really appreciate everybody taking time out of their Saturday morning to be with us. I want to quickly introduce a few people who are here, are going to assist with the meeting. Nick Pergakis is the assistant project manager for the general plan update, and Eunice Sim is one of our associate planners who's doing a lot of work on the general plan itself. Eric Norris is with us, as well as Liz Golden and Jennifer Williams. They're planners with Interwest, and we'll have them facilitating in breakout rooms if needed, and it's all going to depend on how many participants we have. And then finally, Christine Ball works for the city of Rio Vista, and she's just been instrumental in so many ways and will assist us with running this meeting. So a couple of things. You'll notice that you're all muted. And that's just to avoid background noise and interruptions, distractions in the meeting. So as we get into this, and this will be a participatory meeting, so we'll ask you to raise your hand if you have comments or questions, and then Christine will unmute you and we'll take your comments, questions, but then you'll bounce back on to mute. I want to make sure everybody's aware of a function here under. If you move your cursor to the bottom of the screen, you'll see some little boxes that pop up. And one of them is reactions. And when you go to reactions, you can raise your hand just like I did. So that would be the way that you could signal that you have a comment or a question that you want to ask. And then under reactions, you can then lower your hand when you're done. And that's important because if you leave it up, I'm going to think that you have more to say. And so we'll come back to you. So raise your hand to ask questions, make comments, and then go ahead and lower it afterwards. There is also a chat function. So if you go again near the bottom, you can hit the chat function, and you can type something. You can type something in and just hit return, and we'll get the message. So this is a great way if you just want to get questions in the queue, because at various times we're going to come back and jump in and answer questions. So using the chat is a way to get a question in, as well as raising your hand. So those are just a couple. Yes.
Yeah, one other thing for those people who are calling in and you're on your phone and you're not looking at a screen, if you want to raise your hand, go on your keypad and press *9. That'll raise your hand, and then *9 again, it'll lower it. So *9 is to raise your hand for all the folks out there who are on your phone.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for getting that in. And then we see from Rich that some of you have these icons located at the top of the screen. So I was describing what I'm seeing on my screen. Your configuration may be a little bit different, but the raise your hand and chat functions are things we'd like you to be able to use. So I know that we have at least one member of the General Plan Working Group with us today, and we're asking all members of the Planning Commission, City Council, and General Plan Working Group to listen and participate, but because of certain rules that guide how we hold meetings, they'll just be observers. So just wanted to let you know that we're going to have some folks that likely will just sit and listen, because we've asked them not to directly participate in this community meeting. This meeting is about hearing from community members and getting your input on the general plan. So that's the quick intro to what we're doing. We're going to start off now. And Nick, would you like to run the poll and explain what the poll is?
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, so now we're going to take a few moments to run a poll to see some things about you today and understand some of your thoughts and kind of get us going and thinking about Rio Vista today and in the future. So, right now, and there's going to be 5 questions that you can take and respond to. The first question is just a warm-up question that gets you started, and then the next 4 questions are related to Rio Vista. So we're going to spend about 3 or 4 minutes for you to take the questions.
So I think you'll see that you can make selections by choosing a dot circle for your answer. So if everybody could run through that, and if I could get a couple of head nods that you're seeing the poll and it's all clear. I think I just saw Kim came on. Kim, we're in the middle of doing a little poll, so if you could, you should see a poll on your screen, and we're asking folks to just answer a few quick questions before we get started in the meeting. Okay, this is a pretty quick poll, so we can see that we have 12 people who have responded. If anybody else wants to get their responses in and hit, Nick, do they have to hit something at the end to submit?
No, it goes fine. It goes through automatically.
Okay. So it looks like we have 12 respondents so far. Got about 1 minute and we're going to close this down. Okay, it's going to be a really short minute. Nick, why don't we go ahead and roll on?
Sure, keep things moving along. Okay, so we'll end the poll here and I'll share the results with everybody. Can everybody see the responses to the questions and how many people responded and the percentages? Okay, thumbs up from Eunice. Okay, great.
Okay. So I'll do a quick run through the results. Looks like beach is the winner with 62%. That's good. You folks live on a river. I'm glad you're not partial to deserts or mountains. So you're in the right place for vacationing anyway. Looks like we have a range of the amount of time spread really pretty evenly, with the exception of that 6 to 10 year range is the most common response. We have seen a lot of residents through our other meetings who have a very long tenure with Rio Vista, and some even that are multi-generational, which is really speaks to a community when people choose to live and stay in one place. So third question is, where do you live? And so we're getting some great representation from Trilogy. So that clearly is, most folks are from the Trilogy development, a couple from the historic core, and then one from Homecoming. So it's good to see a range of locations represented. And then let's see. What do you like best about Rio Vista? Oh, Nick, can you confirm that I'm coming through okay? I just got a message that my internet wasn't great.
So you're fine.
Okay, thank you. So what do you like best about Rio Vista? Small town charm. Well, we've heard that over and over. People really like the size and the character and the friendliness of the town. Some other things are, historic downtown geography, where it's located in proximity to river, but we have heard that message, that just the character of the town and that you know each other and a good feel. How would you like to participate? It looks like the majority are comfortable with virtual or don't have a preference. We will be doing some in-person meetings going forward, and that may be a barrier for some folks coming on to a virtual meeting. We really appreciate all of you getting on this morning. We will have in-person meetings coming somewhere around June or July. We'll do a couple more of these meetings. So that kind of gets us through the poll. We appreciate the information, and we just like to get a sense of who we're talking about. So Nick, I think you can pull that down. We're going to I had to close that. We're going to run through a presentation, but I do see that Albert has a hand up. Could we unmute Albert and find out what his question comment is? Hang on, Albert. Can Albert unmute himself now?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm a rancher just outside of Rio Vista at Amy and Montezuma Hills Road. Your poll did not include anything about the ranching community or the importance of agriculture in the region when it was what do you like about Rio Vista? And also I was trying to send a comment about that. And you ended the poll before I could fully respond. And also I've been here for more than 30 years. So
fantastic, Albert. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing your comments verbally. Sorry we cut you off on the poll. But
well, no, it was just, yeah. you were designing your poll for city people. So yeah.
Indeed, but we're also very interested in any thoughts from folks around the community. And actually, we have heard from community members that they really value the setting, and part of that's the agriculture and the undeveloped nature. So we certainly are interested in hearing comments like that, and have already heard comments like that from the community. So thank you, Albert.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Nick and I are going to run through a brief presentation about general plan updates in general, and then Rio Vista specifically. Keep in mind that we have this chat function set up so that you can log in questions while we're going through this presentation. We're going to take about up to 10 minutes or so to answer any questions that you might have for the presentation. As soon as this is wrapped up, we'll be heading on with the meeting. But just wanted to let you know that if you have any thoughts or ideas or questions as we go through this brief PowerPoint, please use the chat function, and then we can answer those questions when we wrap up this segment. Okay, so we've already go ahead and next slide, Nick. We're already kind of moving through the meeting. We're now in this segment of an overview of the general plan update. We're going to go into what's called a breakout session after this. That's a function in Zoom where we're going to break you up into probably 3 groups, and each will be a facilitated discussion. We want to make sure everybody has a chance to share their thoughts, and by getting you in smaller groups, we can let more people talk at the same time. We'll come back from that, and we'll get a report out from each group about what were the biggest things you talked about. We'll also then talk about the next steps in the general plan, where we're going, and we'd like to leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A in case there's anything that folks want to discuss. And then we're going to try to get you out of here at 11:30. So that's what we're trying to hit. Nick, if you want to go forward. And just an image of Rio Vista, and it does kind of remind us what we're talking about. This is a small community, as Albert mentioned. There's a lot of ag lands around the community, and there's this wonderful river. So it's a neat setting, and I've been working with the city for a couple of years and have really enjoyed getting to know your town. Next slide. Nick?
I'm going to spend a moment providing an overview of what a general plan is in California. The general plan defines the vision for what our city and the city of Rio Vista will look like in the next 20 years, 25 years, and a roadmap to get us there. The general plan establishes long-term goals and policies to guide a community in realizing a vision at least 20 years in the future. The state of California requires each city to adopt a comprehensive long-term general plan for the physical development of the community, and provides a roadmap to how to get there and a list of topics that must be addressed. Rio Vista General Plan was last comprehensively updated in 2001. So it's been a while since we've relooked at the plan and the policies. Since then, the city has updated the housing element, 2014, as mandated by the state HCD and state law, and other elements of the general plan have been modified through minor amendments. This effort provides a timely opportunity for the city to review the general plan as a whole, reassess its effectiveness, and provide a framework for decision makers to establish goals and policies that will guide Rio Vista in realizing its future vision. General plan elements, there are 7 mandated general plan elements by the state for a general plan, and they must be adopted, or may be adopted in any form deemed appropriate or convenient for a county or city, including the combining of elements. So these are some of the elements we'll be looking at in our general plan update, including land use and community character. The land use chapter really describing the proposed distribution and intensity of uses in the city related to housing, business, industry, public facilities, and other uses. Mobility and circulation throughout the city, housing, parks, open space and conservation, as well as economic development, safety and public facilities. I would like to say the housing element is currently in the process of being updated. You've probably seen some things about the housing element in terms of meetings, and the consultant team, Placeworks, has been in the process of doing that for over the last 6 months or so. And that process is really needing to be completed this year in 2022 to meet the state law for updating the housing element. So we'll be integrating those ideas and thoughts from the housing element into the overall general plan update. But just want to make you aware that that is and has been a separate process, but will be part of the final general plan overall. I'm going to turn it over to Paul.
Hey, thanks, Nick. And, you know, one of the questions we got at the meeting Thursday is, well, what is this general plan thing and why are we even doing it? How does it affect me? And I think it's important to understand that the general plan really guides a lot of activities by the city. As Nick mentioned, it will help us understand where we're going to allow houses to be built and where we're going to expect stores and shops to serve the community and where are our jobs going to go. It also guides how the city is going to spend its resources. We'll be looking at infrastructure, that's water service and sewer service and drainage, and how does all of that happen? So the general plan really guides a lot of actions by the city, as well as providing the guidance to the Planning Commission and City Council when somebody comes in and says, I want to do something with my property. The first thing we do is we look at the general plan. So it is a fairly technical document, but it has very real world effects on the community. At this point in this process, that right here we see really some of the steps we're going to go through in this effort. We have been going through a background review, background documents. Rio Vista's done some great planning work over the years. There's a waterfront specific plan that really talks about how the downtown is going to connect with the river. How are we going to make that a real asset for the community? So that's a document we're pulling in. The existing general plan itself has lots of great policies. And in some ways, though, it's really become pretty dated because the concepts that were very in fashion in 2000 really don't make as much sense in today's economy. And so we're going to use the best out of the existing general plan, but we're not just carrying things over for the sake of carrying them over. We are going to be looking at existing conditions. There certainly are some things that have changed in the last 20 years. There really wasn't a discussion of climate change and what is that going to mean. And yet now we know that sea levels are rising and summers are getting hotter and rainstorms are getting more damaging, and not an issue for Rio Vista, but wildfires have become an incredible challenge in California. So all of these are really new circumstances in the last 20 years that we need to be thinking about, as well as the community has a whole lot more homes and they're in different locations. And so all of this has to be folded in, and we need to understand what Rio Vista today is and focus on where the community is going in the next 10 to 20 years. This is really the first of the community workshops that we're going to have. The second of this opening meeting, we had the same meeting on Thursday evening, but we wanted to give you a couple of opportunities as community members. There'll be a couple of more, at least 2 more community meetings somewhere in late June, I expect, and we'll go the next step. But what we're really trying to find out now is get a sense of what's on the mind of community members. What do you care about? What's most important to you? Where should we spend our efforts on this general plan update? So you're really helping to set the vision for the general plan, and then we'll be digging into the details. And that's where we start preparing the actual general plan document. As those elements that Nick talked about are completed, we'll post them up. You'll have a chance to review and comment on them. We'll be coordinating with the county, certainly, but also other agencies that provide services. We'll be talking to the school district. We'll be talking to other fire agencies that provide service around us. all of that coordination, as well as with some state agencies, will be going on throughout the process. In California, if you want to make any significant decision at a city level, you have to consider the environmental impacts. That's the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. And we are having an environmental document prepared in conjunction with this effort. It's called an Environmental Impact Report, or EIR. You read about these things in the newspaper occasionally on big projects. So there is an EIR that's going to be prepared for this general plan. And then finally, at the end of all this, we'll go through an adoption process where the Planning Commission and City Council hold formal hearings for the adoption. Next slide. There we go. We really do want to hear from the community. We attempted to reach out to you through a newspaper article, a lot of email blasts, and social media, as well as flyers and cards that were distributed throughout the community. So we really want to include the community. There's going to be a number of ways that you'll be able to participate, both through workshops like this, but also we will have a general plan working group that has now met 4 times and will continue to meet. We will have at least 2 more community workshops as we really frame up the general plan. Then there'll be hearings, as I mentioned, to look at the pieces. Throughout this whole process, we will be posting materials and meeting recordings and notes up on a general plan website. We're going to give you that location, that website at the end of the meeting, so you'll have it. But there's the general plan website, and then there's another platform referred to as Mind Mixer. And there's right now there's a survey up there. We'd really appreciate if anybody could get to the Rio Vista General Plan Mind Mixer site and take that survey. We're going to be collecting that and have that open for at least several more weeks. But there's other ways that you can provide input on that Mind Mixer site. You can load up pictures, you can put up comments, you can like someone else's comments. So lots of different ways we're trying to get at what do you as a community care about and what's important. Next slide, Nick. There we go. So here's just roughly the timeline. As mentioned, we're already into the background analysis. Step number 1, we're already doing step number 2, which is listening and visioning. That's what this meeting is all about. And honestly, these look like they're sequenced 1, 2, 3. They're not. We're already starting to prepare a format and framework for the draft general plan while we're conducting background analysis, while we're listening and helping to establish a vision. So this process is not as neat and clean as the diagram suggests. A lot of this work will go on concurrently. Pretty soon, we're going to be starting the environmental impact report as well. And all of these efforts ultimately are leading towards a plan that will be completed in the early part of next year, and will probably be going to hearings about, in June, July, something of next year. So we have a year-long process ahead of us, and we're going to be interested in the community's participation throughout. So next slide, Nick. And I think this is just going to say questions.
Yeah.
There it is. All right, so that was kind of a lot that Nick and I shared with you. And at this point, I think we'd like to take a pause. Nick, why don't you take the presentation down for a moment?
Sure. And we've coming in, I've been responding to several.
Okay. So because the members can't, I don't believe everybody can see each other's comments. So Nick, have you seen any questions come in from the chat?
I have, yes, and I've responded to a few of them. One question that came up is how will the Egbert project affect Rio Vista? And not sure if we want to talk about that during the breakout rooms, but Paul, you might have something you can share on the Egbert project with the community.
I'm not sure what the Egbert project is. Christine, does that name, or maybe the person who asked, could you share? I see a hand up.
Should be Jerry asking a question.
We have, Christine, we have a hand up. It's just iPad. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to comment on Egbert. I had my hand raised for other questions, but briefly, the Egbert, and I'm no expert, believe me, it has to do with the floodplain here in Rio Vista. I'm sure there's a lot of other people who are more qualified to speak on that.
No, okay, just briefly. Robin Bore is the Public Works Director for the city, and she did share with me plans that are underway now to establish basically a new boundary of flooding. I don't know if everybody's aware of what the YOLO bypass is. People up around Sacramento know it as that really wide area between Davis and Sacramento, and in big floods, they push water into the YOLO bypass. A similar solution is being proposed, and it's going to clip into the properties that are really kind of southeast of the airport. And so there's areas that will be subject to inundation under this plan. And we're going to be looking at that in the general plan. So if we're anticipating urban uses out there, we need to make sure we understand where the levees are going to go, where the flooding, the extent of the flooding will be. And so that is certainly one of those inputs. It's both for land use as well as for infrastructure. So great question. Any other questions, Nick?
Yes, we had a question. I was writing her back. Let's go ahead and accept this now and talk about it now. So Karen just wrote in to me about the general plan process and says she understands will be presented to the community and the city council. And she understands that the community can share their ideas and concepts. However, will the community have the ability to accept and or reject any of the proposals?
Well, ultimately, the Planning Commission will review the draft general plan and will make a recommendation, and the city council will decide whether to adopt it. But both of those bodies are going to be very interested in community input. We may not get to a plan that satisfies everybody, but of course that would be the goal. We do want your input so that the general plan working group and the Planning Commission and the city council understand what you're after. They are your representatives. You elected the city council to make these decisions ultimately. But I can tell you, council members, every council member I've ever worked with cares deeply about what the community wants and thinks. So we want your input. I'm sure the council and commission and working group would very much appreciate your input. At the end of the day, individual community members don't have the authority to reject it. So it's just a process of sharing your thoughts and letting the decision makers know what you care about and what you want. All right, go ahead. I see the hand. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. Could we unmute Christine?
I've asked her to unmute, so she needs to accept it.
Okay. So can you unmute?
Okay.
Remind me of
First of all,
your
I
name.
wanna thank you very-
I know we've talked. Remind me of your name.
I'm Sue Clark, and I live in Trilogy, and I came to Rio Vista in 2006 to work for the Travis Aero Club as an instructor after I retired from the airline. So I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to ask the question, but I presume that your master plan will include the airport. Is that correct?
So the airport will, of course, be part of the general plan, but the airport itself has its own document. It's called the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. And that's adopted by the folks at the Airport Land Use Commission. So they amend that. The city doesn't actually ultimately decide what goes into the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. We will have some policies about what goes on around the airport that's certainly affected, and we need to make sure that the land use plans are compatible with the airport operations. So that's really important, but we'll be focused more on what happens on the land around the airport than the actual airport operations. Make sense?
Okay. Yes, thank you. And I forgot to thank Art for posting this on Nextdoor so I could zoom in. I couldn't get on the other night because I was hitting *6 instead of *9. So that was operator error. I'm not the best zoomer in the world. Okay, so yes, there is the Airport Land Use Committee, but I understand the master plan will include issues around the airport, not necessarily airport specific issues. That I understand. So if someone wants to make a comment or get involved, but they don't want to address issues publicly, is there a method for them to do that or a means for them to do that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the two ways that would be best, and we'll get to these sites at the end, but MindMixer is a site that's really kind of Facebook and social media rolled into one and has surveys and comments. So that's certainly one way. Also, the general plan website has the ability to log comments in that would just come straight into staff. So they would be direct line into staff, not viewed publicly. So both of those are good options for, from your living room participant.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And I'm happy. Oh, one other comment. I would maybe suggest that you get input from the Airport Advisory Commission members, not from a standpoint of what to do on the airport, but these people are highly experienced in aviation, and they're knowledgeable on things that should go on around the airport. And I would suggest that you contact Jeff Budner, who is their chairperson, and maybe have the AAC provide some input to this master plan. I think that would be important. And lastly, I don't see any participation from Liberty. And I think we really need to, Core, Montezuma, all the other areas, I would like to see a lot of participation, as I'm sure you would too. And we need to get their input. And thank you very much for letting me speak.
Absolutely, thank you. Any other questions? We're getting pretty close to where we want to jump into the breakout rooms, but if there's any last questions, we can answer those. Nick, did you have anything else?
No, not at this time.
Okay, well, we're now going to go into the next phase of this, which is a breakout room. So you've all been assigned to a room with a facilitator. And in just a moment, you're going to jump over to that. We're going to take about 30 minutes in those discussions. And the facilitator will be asking you questions, thoughts, and getting your input to help us guide this general plan effort. We'd really appreciate comments. Well, we know that some folks are very comfortable speaking in these forums and some folks not as much, but if you can chime in, if you can share your thoughts and your ideas, every idea has value. Every person's voice is important. So we'd very much like to hear from you. Nick, is there anything else we need to cover before going into breakouts?
No, we'll go ahead and go through the instructions during the breakout room. So yeah, we'll go ahead and cover those individually in the rooms.
Okay. So Christine, I think at this point we can go ahead and move into the breakout rooms. Christine, I'm still seeing Mark and Lisa and Rich.
They were assigned a room. So
Okay.
there we go.
Rich, I think you can join the room. Mark, can you join the room? Why don't we let's unmute Rich and see if there's any tech issue. Rich, any issues with getting into the room?
I'm multitasking here, so go ahead and send it to me again, and I will switch over.
Okay, great, thanks.
I was gonna bail. I was in a room with Nick and he said he got it. He has it covered. Just want to make sure before I.
Yeah, I
Okay,
didn't know if I was supposed to assign you, so I just assigned you.
all good, that's good. I'm gonna jump in and let's see, who else is?
Liz is in room 3 with Eric, so I don't know.
Okay, I'll jump in there and let her know that if she wants, she can jump off. Thanks for taking time out, Jennifer. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no problem. Good luck. I'm glad you got good participation this morning.
Yeah, this is great. Talk soon.
Have a good meeting.